Hello. In this video, I'm going to modify a little Swiss Army knife to make it more of a sort of survival kit edition. You can also use many of these mods for their larger knives as well, or for that matter, any knife that has removable scales. So Victorinox makes a whole bunch of these sort of keychain size knives. They're 58 millimeters long. This one's the Mini Champ. One of the tools I really like on it is the pen. It's extractable and replaceable, so if it runs out of ink, you can buy new ones for very reasonable prices. And what I really like is that it's a gas pressurized pen, so that means it's like a space pen. You can write upside down, for instance, with it, or on a greasy surface. It fully retracts. You're not going to get ink in your pants or anything like that. And they've also designed it so that when you extend it, and then you also extend the one of the other tools, for instance, I'm going to extend this one, now becomes sort of writing length, which I really like. Here's what the pen looks like. Here's a scale with the pen exposed. Whoops. And as you can see, the pen sort of slides in this little track forward and backwards. So when you do modifications, you have to be sure you don't monkey around with this mechanism. It has to move freely. So here's the Swiss Champ. It's sort of the flagship of the 91mm series at the moment. Has a lot of cool tools on it, but there are a few tools that I don't really have much use for. And I have found that you can get smaller knives that have all the important tools and you can save a lot of bulk. That's also true not only of the big 91mm series, but also the little mini keychain series, the 58mm models. This is the Mini Champ, and it has a cuticle pusher I have no use for, and a 1 3/8 inch ruler, which is just too short for a ruler, so I don't have much use for that. I do like the pen, however. You don't find that on all the models. So what I like is actually the Vagabond. Here's a Vagabond that I've removed the scales of, and it's nice and skinny, so you save a lot of bulk compared to the Mini Champ. It's much lighter, but it lacks the pen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the pen to this and some other accessories. The way the scales get removed or attached is they're sort of like buttons. The rivets, which are made of brass, have a crowned head, and when you stick them into those holes, it sort of snaps into position. Now officially it's a one-way snap. You snap it on and then you never remove it. So removing it means breaking it. But I found a way you can sort of reuse these, and if for some reason they're no longer sticking on, you can always glue them on. I'm going to use my Micra, the knife blade. You also can just use another one of the Swiss Army knives of the 58mm series. This is boiling water that has been resting for 2 minutes, so I'm hoping it's around 190 degrees Fahrenheit. And in goes the Mini Champ. Gonna let it sit there for 1 minute. Colander. Quick dry, and now attack with the Micra. That first set of rivets came off nicely. Excellent. I think I got them perfectly without any chipping. vulnerable right up here. So we get underneath the plastic. We then come to the back side of the rivet, like so, and we pop it off. Now the other two rivets at the other end. And that's how we open up these scales without damaging the rivet hole points. And if these get a little warped in the heating process, you can straighten them back out, and while they cool, keep them nice and flat by putting another weight on them. And it needs to be thoroughly dried. I use paper towels, compressed air, and then this is the final step, putting it in front of my room's hot air heater, and then I give a little bit of oil to the hinges. So this will be able to Frankenstein onto another knife quite nicely. The idea of carrying a straight pin on your knife actually is an idea I got from Victorinox. This has a straight pin underneath the corkscrew. This model has a hole for the pin right underneath the Phillips head. Now, not all models have that hole. You can also add a pin to other tools. Here's a Squirt PS4. In fact, that's my U2 avatar is an image of this one. I've also found positions that you can manufacture with a little tube on the tweezers for Leatherman Micra and Micro Micra. So carrying a pin on your tool can be quite useful. So here's the pin mod that I've applied to an older mini champ model. You just stick your pin in here. So you have pin on this side, you have tweezers on this side. I can't say it's a perfect mod. For one reason, they're interactive. If, for instance, you pull out the tweezers and then push them in quickly, watch what happens with the pin. Did you see it poke out a little? Or the other way around, if I pull the pin out and then I stick it in quickly. See the tweezers pop out? So they share the same chamber in the middle, and unfortunately there's some interactivity with them. But you just keep your finger over the one that you're not using, then you can successfully use the other one without issue. I'm working on it, seeing if I can make it better, but at the moment that's sort of the best I have. So they interactively share the same chamber area. There is a lot of friction, so it's not going to fall out by itself. The weight of the product at least won't pull it out. So that's the pin mod. So this pin mod worked out really well on this one, but unfortunately I'm having trouble replicating it consistently. So if you're lucky, it'll work like this. If you're unlucky, you can ruin your product. And it's potentially dangerous if that pin falls out in your pocket and you could poke yourself. It was basically by heating a pin with a lighter, sticking it in, being very careful to be absolutely parallel to the product. But whether you'll be successful or not, I don't know what to tell you. I'm having trouble. It takes a certain amount of skill. Here we go. We have a piping hot needle, elevated a bit. See how that did. It's very important that in survival kits you pre-thread the needle, and that's because you want to assume that when you need to use it, your hands are going to be cold, shivering, it's dark out, slippery, wet, and one hand is crushed from a car accident you just had. So you always want to design everything in the kit to be optimally used under adverse conditions, and that means the needle needs to be pre-threaded. I'm trying to be careful not to let the thread get tangled. I'm just spinning on the thread. When I get to one end, I then back up and spin it on, going spirally around the body in the other direction. Let's see if it fits. It fits. You want to use it, go like this. So I have two Bic lighters here. What I like about the clear ones is you can see the fluid much more easily. This one still has fluid in it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that in the video. This one, however, is empty, so we're going to open it up to get at its ferrocerium rod. You remove the yoke of this part, and then you pull it out very carefully, because that spring will tend to make that ferrocerium rod shoot across the room. So there we go. There's the ferrocerium rod found in all Bic lighters. Anyway, I want to mount this little ferrocerium rod taken from the Bic lighter in this little pocket of this pen scale for a Victorinox 58mm series. And let's see if all you had was this ferrocerium rod and a 58mm knife, if you could start a fire with some tinder. I'm using a cotton ball that I've puffed up. Part of a cotton ball. Here goes. Fire from the world's smallest ferrocerium rod. It fits. Bingo. Give you a close-up. So here's the sewing kit in place. Now adding the filed down ferrocerium rod for fire starting that I extracted out of the Bic lighter. And I also flattened one side, make it fit the knife a little better. And this, including the extra pin on the other side, and we have a really souped up Victorinox knife, specifically a Vagabond. There we go. Glow fob. So I'm still playing around with what the ultimate configuration is going to work best for me. I'm definitely going to add a lanyard, much like I have on this larger 91mm, a parafob. Here I've created a little parafob that's sort of good for the 58mm series. It's tied in the same configuration as my Mega bracelet, if you want to learn about how to make one of those. Having cordage is certainly very useful in a survival kit. Some other models have a whistle. This little guy has a whistle in it. Whistles are certainly good for a survival kit. You might consider that. Here's a Silvertech model with the clear scales with the gray-silver paint underneath. This one has a flashlight. It works okay, but I'm actually more partial to photon flashlights. Plus, I'm reluctant to put this in water to make the plastic soft, but certainly a possibility. I originally had planned on souping up this orange one, but I discovered that the glow-in-the-dark toothpick doesn't work well through the orange plastic. It works better through yellow and some of the other colors. So I'm going to hold off on using the orange one. But I just wanted to talk about how some of these accessories can be used on alternate models, and how you mix and match them is up to you. Let's make sure the pen sliding mechanism slides. It does. Excellent. That's something I was worried about. The scale does seem nice and flush to the metal. That's good too. Now let's do the other side. So I have a clamp here if I need it, but I'm just trying to use my fingers. So let's see how everything goes in. Tweezers fit. Pin fits. Pin has good friction. The weight of the product will not make the pin fall out, so that's good. Pen up, pen up, insert pen, make sure it slides in and out. It does. So it was a success. You want to be sure when you put on the scales that there's no air gap. And I had planned on using this vise, if necessary, to make it as tight as possible, but I think just very hard finger pressure will do it, but you just have to keep holding it for a minute. But this came out really nicely. Pin has good friction, everything works in tip-top shape. So here are some of the basics of any survival kit. Flashlight, a supply of cord, a little paracord lanyard, that's type 1 paracord, and a multi-tool knife. Keep in mind that knife is smaller than my pinky, so this is a real bare bones minimalist system that can even fit in my fist, my pocket, or a little Altoids tin. So one may ask, what good is having a pin in your Swiss Army knife? Here's an example of how I use it. Rather than peeling off that entire top, you just make a pin prick right in the middle. You now have a great squirt container. You can squirt the alcohol exactly where you want it to go. And it doesn't evaporate while you leave the cap off. I'm thinking if I clean this with alcohol first before I get it hot, I won't get that soot on it, but let's see. Another thing useful for a wilderness survival kit is a fishing hook. I think you could just barely fit one inside in these little pocket areas underneath the tweezers or toothpick. You just have to melt a little notch in the inner groove there to sort of snap it into position. But I'll warn you, some scales don't have these inner pockets. Sorry, I don't know how to identify which do and which don't. Here's an interesting little trick. Say you accidentally drop your pin on the ground or in a crevice, hard to reach area, or the tweezers, or for that matter, any little lightweight metal object like I have assembled here. You deploy your scissors, you deploy your combo tool, you detach your quick release bracelet or paracord lanyard on the knife, you hook it over the spring on the scissors, and now you can dangle this in a hard to reach area to pick up, for instance, your tweezers or pin. So it acts as a retrieving tool. Sometimes you can pick up a whole bunch of stuff.